Well, hello everybody. By PC Pod or Pad, you are most likely watching the Paid to Play episode 75 launch party. Thank you very much for coming along. Let me just drop my seat down here a little bit. There we go. So yes, I'm Rob Farker, host of the podcast, the exploration of the dangerous idea that bringing your whole self, especially the parts of you that you worry make you seem silly, geeky, or odd, into your income generating life is one of the best things you can do. It might not be easy, but it is still easier than we think and even fear. And my chats with people who are doing it, I hope, will make life a little bit easier for the rest of us as we try and figure out how to make something out of our plays. Now, as of now, I'm just refreshing my website. Yep, here we go. Open that in new tab. Episode 75, which is my chat with Ross Barber of Electric Kiwi, a business that Ross owns and operates completely. He is basically the sole employee, and he designs websites for independent musicians, and he also does album covers for them. It's an interesting podcast, particularly because it's not the only play he has. I mean, in fact, he was studying at university to become a professional musician when pretty much in the last year of his studies, he did a project about promoting a fictional band, did up a website for them, and actually found it to be quite interesting work to be doing. So he sort of wound up switching paths after he completed his degree, and it was enough that he's now one of my Venkmans, one of the people who has gone completely into business for themselves. Now, I hope you will excuse me very quickly. One thing I do need to do that I've not done yet, copy link location, is to actually add the episode on Patreon. That's one of the things I would love it if Patreon could do. It would be to be able to schedule posts, because at the moment, if I want to put something up as an episode or something that I've already got prepared, but I don't want to actually put out until a certain time, I'm kind of stuffed with Patreon unless there's someone who knows if there's another tool, like maybe If This Then That, that can integrate with Patreon, and that will work anyway. So let's see. Now, right, okay, that is now up. And that's an interesting thing I've just discovered, is that from the looks of things, Patreon, in case you don't know, I've just switched Patreon from a per episode to a monthly payment basis. And it looks like when I was on every episode, if I put a new post up as a creator on the Pay to Play Patreon website, it would only... I hope this is actually getting video out there. So let me just check something very quickly. I just want to go have a look at the Hangout webpage. All right, yes, it looks like that is showing me my lovely mug on there live. So good, fantastic. If everyone can see me, then great. And I hope someone else is viewing this at the moment. It says 0 viewers, but I did have a couple of people say they were going to come along. At the moment, folks, actual participation in this chat is limited to folks who are actually contributing on Patreon to the $21 a month or more level. So as I was saying, getting back on track, whenever I was posting on Patreon, when I was getting crowdfunding on a per episode basis, I was actually able to nominate which post I put up counted as paid content. But it now looks as though, as long as I'm putting something up as a patron on the Patreon wall during a given month, then it counts as having created content. I don't know. It seems like a bit of a backhanded way of doing it. It just means that if I don't make an episode, I can't even put a news update on there, because that gets counted as paid content, and yeah, people are paying for it. So I don't know. I might have to switch back to a per episode basis, despite how I know a couple of people would prefer to pay on a per month just because it allows them to organize their budgets. I just don't like this idea of getting paid when I'm not actually producing what I say I'm going to be paying you for, that I'm asking for payment for. Apologies. So yeah, that's a bit of a concerning thing for me. Like I said, monthly payments do help some people when they know there's going to be a set amount coming out every month. But right at the moment, my chat with Ross was the last episode I have in the can. I did have a few more chats sort of on the go. I hadn't been able to nail down times. I did have one sort of scheduled for this weekend, but unfortunately I did have to cancel. Unless you folks, in case you don't know, if you've not been following my personal pages on the various social medias, my lovely wife had to go into hospital on Wednesday evening. Shortly after I got home from work, she suddenly got hit by a truck carrying a load of pain. I'm talking metaphorically here. She didn't go out and walk across the road and get hit by a truck. We were just sitting here in the front office, and all of a sudden, she started experiencing horrid abdominal pain. We wound up having to call an ambulance, and she went into hospital, and is still there at the moment, actually. And she has been diagnosed with a couple of things. Pancreatitis, so swelling of the pancreatic gland, which is one of the major organs in the human body, important for health, produces and regulates insulin. And they suspect that there is a gallstone basically blocking the tube that exits the pancreas. So she's having problems getting waste product out of there. But she also definitely has an 8mm kidney stone blocking her ureter. So yes, a lovely combination of things, which results in a shite load of discomfort. Not fun for her. I've been popping in and visiting her, and basically I had to nip in on Saturday morning, which cancelled the chat I was going to be having. So yes, I have to make sure. It kind of leaves things a little bit up in the air right at the moment. Once Vicky gets home, which will hopefully be Tuesday, there was originally talk of her being in for the full week, but now that they've got a better idea of what's going on, it looks as though once they get rid of the kidney stone on Monday afternoon, they can get her out of hospital on Tuesday. Pardon me for a second, let's have some tea. But yeah, it basically means that things are a little bit uncertain right at the moment. We're still trying to work out exactly what the pancreatitis and recovery from it are going to mean for Vicky. So in between working the day job, am I going, I'll probably wind up having to pick up a little bit of my personal slack in terms of keeping this place clean and tidy and all that kind of thing. But yeah, right now, okay, I'll stop speculating and basically say that at the moment, with Vicky's condition right now, there are a lot of unknowns. So while I'm keen to get some more chats in the can, I want to try and make sure I've got one for a couple of weeks' time, of course, the scheduled next episode 76. But yes, I'm just not sure whether I can make an appointment with a person for a chat and guarantee that I will be there for it. So we'll see how we go. In the meantime, look, enough rabbiting on about that. I do have a checklist of things over here. That I was going to talk about. Sorry for turning away from the mic for a sec. I also did have a pen, which I thought I had left over there, but it looks like I haven't done. Episode 75. And let me just do a quick check. Is anybody... That's another thing I better do, is make sure I am spreading the word about this episode, which I've done automatically. There's a whole bunch of updates there, but here we go. Sorry about the vague look. I'm just concentrating on looking at the screen. Episode 75 is live. Please down and listen. And close your mouth while you're concentrating. And let's also go to Facebook. Where are we? Sometimes I notice if things just go up on the Page to Play podcast page, they don't go all that far, so I just share them out on my personal page as well, and that gets them a few extra hits. So let's see. Again, sorry for just concentrating on the screen for a moment. My chat with Ross Barber of Electric Kiwi, web design for independent musicians and bands, for episode 75 of the podcast is live. Is download and listen. All right. Post that up. Okay. So there were a few things I wanted to say about Ross. Actually, and okay, I think I've got things thoroughly tweeted and what have you. 3 notifications on the Page to Play Podcast's Twitter feed, and that was just me basically retweeting my stuff on the on my personal Twitter feed, which I'm also just going to nip in and do now. Tweet. Come join in. It's a little lonely here at the moment. All right then. Up a bit. Okay, so where are we? Everything shared, I think. Okay, I was talking about my guest for episode 75, Ross Barber. Now, of course, you will get quite a bit out of the episode of the podcast. So please download that and have a listen. There are a few things that I did want to mention about Ross that I completely forgot to during the episode or during the editing process. Ross is actually the third person to use my fancier chat page on the Pay to Play website to get in touch unsolicited. So basically, out of the blue, presumably due to various social media efforts of my own, Ross found out about the podcast. When I asked him about how he found it, he said he couldn't quite remember, but he did know that he added it to his Twitter lists at one point. And he found it on Facebook, started following there as well. And then one day I kind of noticed him there, and I'd seen his picture again. Yeah, I don't know who this Ross Barber chappie is, but yeah, might have to go investigate him at some point. But I didn't. Sorry, Ross. Next thing I know, I've got this email coming in letting me know that someone has filled in the fancier chat form on the Pay to Play podcast, and it's Ross, and he's talking about his business, Electric Kiwi, which again is all about designing websites and album covers for independent musicians and bands. And I thought, fantastic, let's get this guy on. So number one, by the way, was Kristen Baker of Kristen Baker Life Coaching, which I think she's now calling Sales Success. So she's probably still doing some general life coaching, although I think she's wound that down and she's become more focused on helping people get their products in front of as many eyeballs as possible and convert those eyeballs into paying transactions, which is something I suppose I could use a bit of a hand with, although I'm still trying to work out what product it is that I want to sell. I mean, but anyway, another thing I did want to say about Ross is that I was hoping he was going to be my first actual video episode of the Pay to Play podcast. We did a video recording. I downloaded a piece of software called Talk Helper, which actually has a 7-day trial period and allows you to record video from Skype calls. And unfortunately, though, the audio seemed to get mangled. So my files were unusable. And Ross, thank you very much, sir, for recording at your end. I asked Ross for the files and he sent them over. The only other problem is, at the moment, the only thing that I've got that does video editing is Windows Movie Maker, which is great. It's good for when I'm doing personal video logs and things like that. But if there's one thing it can't do is multiple video streams at once. So I couldn't bring in Ross's part of the chat and sort of switch between the two of them running concurrently. So I wound up having to go back to Ross again and say, look, I'm sorry, but is there any chance you can export the show as audio? And he did, thankfully, got it to me a little earlier on this week. And yes, I edited it up and put it up. But I am sorry that I wasn't able to do a video edit like I was hoping to. Still, that said, I do have the footage in the can, so I might at some point release that video chat on YouTube if I can get the video editing software, which is one of the things I'm hoping that you folks on Patreon can help with. And again, just a reminder to anyone else who might be watching this, whether they're live or having a look on the Pay to Play website a little bit afterwards. I have changed my Patreon goals and backer rewards lately, and I've started talking less about specific things that I want to do, and I'm just trying to get a bit more funding, just to get a bit more disposable income to use as I want to, whether I want to use it on the Pay to Play podcast for improvements like video editing software or that kind of thing, or whether I just want to splurge on myself and my wife, like as I say in my Patreon backer video, which I put up again fairly new, do something nice for her, do something nice for the both of us, like maybe take my wife out to dinner or get her out of town for a little while, which, despite what's going on at the moment with her health, I'm still hoping that that's something that I can do for her. Fingers crossed. Or if I want to have a splurge on something like Star Wars Force and Destiny, the role-playing game book. Or maybe an upgrade to my computer, which, let's face it, at the moment can do quite a few things, but is not all that crash hot when it comes to playing video games. Although then again, lately that's not been as much of a priority for me anyway. But still, I would like a little bit more freedom, disposable income-wise, and I'm hoping that the podcast can pay me to play in that regard. And speaking of which, Ross, you lovely gentleman, he came on board as a $4 a month backer. So that was most unexpected, Ross. Thank you very much. Good on you. And we'll sort out, I mean, at the moment, the only reward he gets at that level is just being able to post on the wall. And that's another thing, folks. If you are a Patreon backer, please put the odd post up on the Patreon wall. Let me know who you are, how you're doing with regards to getting paid to play, what the things that you love to do are, and, you know, the harebrained ideas that you might have had about turning them into incomes. I've got to admit, sometimes I do think the same thing about getting back into tabletop role-playing games. Maybe there's something that I can do there. I talked a bit last week about Deathwatch, which sadly, again, did not happen for various reasons. Last week, I was going to be nipping over to my player's house to do a session, and there was this bloody mini cyclone in Redlynch the night before, so they wound up having to spend the day cutting down a fallen tree in their front yard. So no way they would have had the energy for a tabletop RPG session afterward. And we were sort of hoping to reschedule for this weekend, maybe do it online instead. And, of course, circumstances prevented that from happening. But one of the things I did do for Deathwatch is that the last time I tried to put a game together, I noticed that character creation is a bit of a slog, and the Deathwatch rulebook is perhaps not the best organized when it comes to just going through the basic process of creating a character. Especially as there are a lot of options spread across a few different tables, which are themselves spread across several pages of the book. So I wound up making, to sort of solve that problem, a compiled character creation process, which included all of the options that were actually available to players when making their characters. And that was the other thing. You're given a certain amount of points that you can spend on various options, but you are limited by the amount of points that you have and the fact that your character is still a starting character, but all the options that you can buy with those 1,000 points are mixed in with all the rest of the options available as you progress further. Not only that, the way the Deathwatch rulebook is laid out, there's a lot of doubling up and redundancy in there. Features that marine characters start off with are given costs in the various tables for buying later. So I wanted to filter those out, and I also wanted to filter the ones that had prerequisites that Marines did not yet have, or that were too expensive, or that maybe if there were 3 options that you could in theory buy that were 400 points each, but because you only had 1,000 points, there was no point including the third option there because you couldn't get it until you bought options 1 and 2, and that would only leave you with 200 points out of the 400 that you needed. In a way, it's a kind of product. I saw a problem. I designed something that would fix it. I'm not sure really whether I can actually sell it, because it's copyrighted content. It's content from the Deathwatch RPG, but maybe it's something that I can offer as a downloadable freebie reward, or maybe just put it up on my website somewhere. Let me just do a quick check on Twitter and the launch party page. I just want to see if anyone has put anything up yet. Sadly, no. Hopefully Mitch from Yoko's Corner is in watching me rabbit on. We will see. Anything on Facebook? Anyone put any comments up? Let's see. Not just yet. Anything on my personal Twitter page? No, unfortunately not. In that case, I shall rabbit on for a little bit longer. What time is it? It is... Oh, go away, synchronization complete. It's a couple of minutes to 8. I was planning to go on until past. I do have some other things that I need to do, like mowing the bloody lawn, and I want to get those out of the way before it gets too hot in the day. And also this afternoon, I'm going to be heading into hospital to see Vicky again, so that puts a limit on the amount of housework I can do. And after all the fiddling with the podcast and what have you, I kind of want to spend some more time doing that. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about? Patreon. Pardon me for a second. I do want to say thank you very much once again to all the fine folks who are chipping in. If you have a look at Patreon at the moment, you'll probably notice that my backer level is up to about $60 US per month. That is actually a kind of temporary backing level. One of the people who came on board chipped in $20 US, but that's kind of a one-time backing. He didn't want to, he's someone I know personally, and he told me that he didn't want to be able to, pardon me, he didn't want to chip in on a monthly basis. He just wanted to give me sort of a one-time, a once-only tip. And the only way you can do that on Patreon is basically put yourself in as a backer for 1 month, wait until that monthly processing goes through, and then cancel your backing. The only problem with that I've noticed is it does inflate, pardon me, the public figure as to what I'm getting on a monthly basis. So someone might come along and say, oh yeah, Rob's getting about $60 US a month. That's plenty enough. I don't think I'll worry about chipping in. And folks, if you do see my Patreon page, I hope you will, put a couple of bucks in a month anyway, because as I've said, it will give me a little bit more disposable income, which otherwise is fairly limited. I took my Patreon expenses my hosting expenses and my domain name fees out of my budget because Patreon was covering them. And then I realized that I didn't like how it sort of made me reliant on Patreon and having to make sure that I did get a certain amount every month. So I actually put them back into the overall household general budget and reduced my personal income as a result. So basically, without the pay-to-play podcast, I get, at the moment, $8 fun money a week, which is basically a comic book. And really, that's about it. So, so yes, right at the moment, the pay-to-play podcast is giving me most of my monthly, I guess, a little over half of my monthly fun money. So that's why I'm hoping you folks will chip in, just so I can get a little bit more freedom, do a few more things as my interest takes me, rather than basically just having to wait 3 or 4 months and forgo a few other things in the meantime if I want to get something like some decent a decent Skype video plugin or some video editing software, or wait, I guess, half a year, if not more, if I wanted to get one of those new portable recorders or, anything else. So yes, I guess one thing that I wouldn't mind looking into is whether or not there's any other way that people can just do a straight up tip. Maybe I need to put a link up to my PayPal so that if you do just want to chip in once, you can do it that way. I know that there are a few people who used to do that. A webcomic that I used to look into, Real Life, I have no idea whether the heck it's still going. I was reading it back when I was living in Sydney, which is over 11 years ago now. So it might well have shut down. I'll tell you what, if you'll excuse me, Real Life web comic. Do a quick Google search. I'm suddenly curious as to see whether that's going on. Oh, let me just swap back. Real Life Comics. Oh, copyright 1999 to 2016. Let's have a look. Real Life Comics. The site is definitely still live. And the last time he did Last time he did an update was December 2015, and he's apologizing basically because he needs to get some website issues sorted out. Actually, that was April 3rd, but it looks like things have gone a little bit quiet just recently, but real life webcomics is still going. That's bloody incredible. The site looks a whole lot better. There's a whole bunch of improvements that weren't there when I started, and there's a few ad spots, and it looks, oh, not hungry, just broke. There it is. He's still getting donations via PayPal. So maybe that's something I need to do for Ian and everyone else who just wants to drop an extra $1 or $2 in, not on an ongoing basis, but just because they have the spare money at the moment and would like to do that. So that's a thought. And of course, I don't have a pen again. I might just make a note of that now. I'll use this art line, which, you know, I really ought to be saving for doing comics or something like that. The PayPal. Okay. So let's see. I talked about Ross. Thank you very much again, Ross. Please go listen to episode 75. You'll find it on the Pay-to-Play website, paidtoplay.com.au. You'll find it on iTunes. And I wouldn't mind getting it into a couple of other podcast aggregators, but I'm not sure how to go about doing that. I tried the Google Podcast service, but that's not available in Australia yet, sadly. So I don't have no idea when they're going to be actually doing that, making it available for us poor people down in the Antipodes. But fingers crossed sometime soon. Let's see. Gone over Patreon. So what generally is next? On the pay-to-play front anyway, with regards to let's talk about play for a sec. So play-wise, Deathwatch is still happening. I am still noodling with the possibility of doing a Dungeons and Dragons or perhaps Pathfinder campaign for some relatives in Melbourne. They're keen, I'm keen. The only problem is I don't have the Pathfinder rulebook yet, which again is not cheap, although there is a humble independent bundle going on where you can download a whole bunch. You can basically make a purchase, I think of something like about 15 or 17 US dollars if you want the lot. And you can then download where was I? You can download a heap of PDFs, including the Pathfinder core rulebook and a whole bunch of expansions. One of the problems with that, though, is that really the only things I've got that I can view a PDF on are my computer, which is single screen, by the way. That's one of the reasons why I find juggling tabs and seeing what else people are up to and seeing if anyone has commented on my on this episode yet. Oh, hang on a second. Thank you very much, Mitchell, who just popped in about 5 minutes ago. Thankfully, I am still checking. Mitch, glad to have you on board. Here is a fellow who I am hoping at some point to get on the show, because right at the moment he is trying to crowdfund getting an anime store here in Cairns. He wants to actually open his own anime shop, which, considering that there are a lot of geeks and a lot of cosplayers here locally, it was one of the reasons why Tropicon was so bloody successful last year, is that, you know, it gave the local geek and anime and cosplay contingent somewhere to go and congregate and show off all their costumes. So, you know, there is a potential market for opening a bricks and mortar store, and I'm really hoping that Mitch can pull it off. I'm saying a lot. I just want to click on his thing, as you do, and let's see if he's got any details up yet. I know he's got a Google Plus page, which you'll find under the name Yoko's Corner. That's YOKO' space corner. His Google ID is plus Yoko Mitch, YOKOMITCH. Does he have any links up to the crowdfunding thing, what he set up? Not at the moment. I know I shared it on Paid to Play on Facebook. Making random noises not exactly into the camera because I'm staring at the screen again, but I know it's here. I know I shared it. Come on, Facebook. I know I'm streaming at the moment, so I know you're going to be a little bit slower than otherwise. But. So look, folks, go on to Paid to Play on Facebook itself. You'll find it at facebook.com/paid to play podcast. Maybe I just commented on it. I don't know. Maybe I commented rather than shared because I'm going back a bit and I can't seem to see any mention of it. Let's try Mitch's thing. Mitch, Ken's. Yes, Mitch is still commenting. Thank you. Ken's first one-stop anime shop. That sounds like a nice, easy sales pitch right there. Sums up the whole damn thing. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yes, so he's got a GoFundMe campaign going. So if you go to gofundme.com, and I suppose you could do a search for Yoko's Corner, or if you just want the direct link, GoFundMe, all one word.com, / and here's a bunch of letters and numbers, so I'm going to go all NATO phonetic alphabet on you folks. 3 Sierra Juliet 3 Victor Whiskey Whiskey Sierra. That's gofundme.com / 3 Sierra Juliet 3 Victor Whiskey Whiskey Sierra. And if you don't know what the NATO phonetic alphabet is, go look it up. At the moment, he has raised $200 of a $700 goal, so please go check it out. If you are in the Cairns area, or you just like the idea of being able to be part of helping an anime store happen in a regional Australian city, please throw Mitch a couple of bucks. Hey, that's one of the things I would like to be able to do with Patreon is maybe pay the love forward a little bit and help some other folks, whether it's on Patreon or crowdfunding efforts like GoFundMe, or even maybe the odd Kickstarter as well. So on the topic of Patreon, I do want to say that right at the moment where the next lot of funding, which will be coming out in March, will be going, there are a couple of specific things that I do need to do. Firstly, I spent $50 recently on some video footage of me doing Pay to Play live at Tropicon, which I want to use on robf.com.au. There's only about 2.5 minutes of it, so it's really not enough to make the extra episode of Pay to Play that I was hoping it might be able to. But I think it will be good as part of a business card for me that I can... and I'm stumbling over my own tongue again because all of a sudden a bunch of ideas are trying to have spawned in my head and are trying to cram their way out of my mouth at once. I was talking about revamping robf.com.au, and the idea behind that is to make it kind of an online business card. Take the focus off the blog, which only gets updated semi-regularly anyway, and a bit more about the things that I am doing. Voice work, podcasting, emceeing and presenting, and basically if I can make the site all about those, do a little bit of personal branding, it might help me toward getting paid to play. And I will even put all the various writing as well, including that Death Watch guide. I'll have to put that in there. I don't know how well it will go as a downloadable thank you. I was about to say if anyone joins my mailing list, but that was one of my Patreon goals at one point, was to get a PO box. If you sign up with MailChimp at the moment, whenever you send a broadcast out, you've got to have an address of some kind, an actual real space address at the bottom of every mail, because those are the current anti-spam regulations. It's basically one way of showing that you are a legitimate person sending actual marketing mail, as opposed to basically spam. And that you're actually sending to, you know, a list of people who have, in theory, opted in, or at least if they haven't opted in and you've added them to the list manually, that, you know, they don't mind. And of course, there's usual unsubscribe links. People, I'm not sure whether email is still viable. Maybe I am looking down the wrong way and I need to be looking more at things like, I posted a video on the pay-to-play website recently by a marketing guru by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk, who basically says, you know, market for now. Do go where people are going now, and where people are going now is not email, as much as people might perhaps opt in, and an email address is still a valuable piece of currency there. People are going to Facebook, they're going to Snapchat, they're going to Instagram. I don't know how much I can do there, really, because Snapchat and Instagram, I've got an Instagram account. I've not got a Snapchat account yet. I didn't want to get one until I'd read through the terms of service, and I have now. It just basically means me signing up on my phone. But I'm not sure what I can do there. They are very visual mediums, and I am not a mad king photographer. I don't take all that many photos. I'm not a selfie queen, darling. And apologies to the folks out there who take selfies. That's being a bit precious about the whole thing, really. And, you know, looking down one's nose at the whole affair, which is, you know, for crying out loud. Times like this, I think of that David Bowie song, Changes. God rest you, David Bowie. And all my best wishes to the people who loved you, whether as a musician or as a friend or a family member. God knows, mate, you're going to be missed, but thank you very much for leaving so much. But yes, changes. These children who you spit on as they try to change their worlds, don't tell them to grow up or out of it. Thanks to you, I don't know the exact lyrics, but I think it's something like, thanks to you, they know they're up to their necks in it. So it's easy to perhaps look down at selfies and Instagram and Snapchat and look at all as vacuous and self-aggrandizing, but for crying out loud, in an age where the very concept of the day job seems to be slowly dying, sometimes, you know, self-marketing is the only, quite probably the best way that you can get yourself out there and give people the chance to get to know you. People who are sick of people hiding behind brands and perhaps empty words of customer service and not really giving you the opportunity as a customer to really connect with your people, because your people are kind of interchangeable. Hi, Mitch. He just said LOL there. I wonder if he was just laughing at the accent or whatever, but yes. Anyone else twittering away, by the way? 5 new tweets, 1 notification. On the Paid to Play podcast Twitter feed, which is Paid Play Podcast. No, that's just me again, retweeting my own freaking tweet, my personal account. Paid to Play Podcast is the Twitter handle, folks, if you want to subscribe. Where was I? So I'm not sure as to how I can really use those resources myself to get out and reach you, but the next thing, I guess, is just trying to get robf.com.au, knock it into a bit more shape, and hopefully direct people there and give them every incentive possible to get in touch and say, hi, Rob, we like your stuff. We'd like to work with you. Speaking of working with you, I announced this on my personal page. I think I might have put it up on Paid to Play. I'm not sure, but I think you might have seen me make the odd mention about me making guest appearances on other people's podcasts. A few things have come up in that score. There were 3 opportunities. One of them, from the looks of things, is not going to pan out in the near future, unfortunately, but another has. Well, actually, 2 have. I have recorded for 2 episodes. Stride and Saunter is a podcast, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that one a while ago. It's a conversational podcast hosted by university students who are trying to tackle some of the deeper issues in life. And I am glad to say that they had me on for an episode talking about crises of faith. It looks like that's not going to be going up until sometime toward the middle of the year, if not later in the year. They've already got podcasts recorded way in advance, which is a lot better than I'm doing at the moment, considering, as I said earlier on, today's one with Ross Barber is the last one I have in the can. So I've frantically got to do some more interviewing between now and the next Sunday fortnight. And also, I recorded for another episode. I have Ross Barber to thank for this. Shortly after we had a chat, he introduced me to a Facebook group called Podcast Discovery Group. So do a search for that. If you're a podcaster or if you are involved in a podcast-related field, let me know. And especially, I don't like offering invitations to people who I don't already have an existing relationship with. So, hey, if you have a podcast anyway, just get in touch. We'll trade links and work out, how we can maybe help each other and just keep in touch. But the Podcast Discovery Group, they are looking for new members. So if you are podcasty, we'll see what we can do about getting you in, get in touch with one of the members. So yes, Ross invited me in, and I got to know a fellow by the name of Justin Day. He goes by Justin K. Day online. He's recently started a podcast called Random Transmissions, which is a weird fiction podcast. Sometimes it's stuff Justin has written. Sometimes it's stuff that other people have sent to him. And it's all wrapped up. It's other shows are straight up hosted, if you know what I mean. You'll have a person say, hi, welcome to Random Transmissions. Well, not Random Transmissions. Hello, welcome to the show. I'm your host. This is what's been happening. Here are the people whose stories we've got on. This is why you ought to listen to them. Instead, and my next door neighbor has just fired up his Ute engine, which is massive and makes a lot of noise. So my apologies if you get a bit more background noise than otherwise. And if you hear a bit of beeping in the background, that's because there is a service station, a petrol station just over there. And that beeping is their wonderful electronic air tire pressure machine. So, of course, as it's getting later in the day, what time is it? 8:20. So 10 minutes to go, folks. You'll get a bit more background noise as the weekend warriors and the bikies and whatever pull in for their to top up for their Sunday ride. Oh, can't really hear it all good, says Mitch. Fantastic. My microphone and pop filter are doing a great job. So yes, Random Transmissions, instead of being a straight up host, what Justin does is that he bookends each episode with sort of a piece of themed in fiction himself. Random Transmissions is a show sent from the far future, beamed through a phenomenon that the host calls the big squeeze, back to the present, sort of a reaching out from the future as kind of a warning / SOS / reach out for contact by a guy who has to live in an underground bunker because the surface of the earth is wasted and uninhabitable. And yes, it's all very grim and odd because the host has what seems like a tenuous grip on sanity at best. Pardon me. And while I'm not a great fan of weird fiction, I don't know, maybe Spider Robinson rubbed off a little bit too much on me, in that I do like things where even if you do have to work for it, even if it might be tough, there is something of a positive ending. I can't remember whether Spider himself said it or whether he was quoting someone else when he said it, but when I was listening to his podcast at one point, I think it was a kind of a critique / rant that he had about the Cormac McCarthy novel, The Road, where he was saying that the very definition, his definition of science fiction as far as he was concerned was that there is a future and there is someone around to care about it. So yes, perhaps my tastes tend to run into that vein as well. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy listening to Random Transmissions, which is going great guns on iTunes right at the moment. And when I found out about it, when I saw Justin mention Random Transmissions and I listened to an episode, if you know me, if you've been following me for a little bit, you've probably noticed that one of the things that I do kind of like doing is a bit of voice work. I've had the odd paying gig, and due to, you know, my the same perfectionist / anxious streak that has stopped me from playing tabletop role-playing games in the past, I've not perhaps followed up consistently or as strongly as I otherwise could have. I've not been able to make that a consistent thing. The fine folks at Journey Birds Wonderland, Birdie and Mike Diamond, they're backing at the $21 a month level on Patreon, which means that they're also getting me to record a 5-minute voice file for them every month. So they're going to be using that to get me to keep doing some voice work for them as well, which looks like fun. But yeah, anyway, I got in touch with Justin and I said, hey, here are some voice samples I've done in the past. I sent him the Ogre short story reading and the GEV short story reading that I did. And I said, look, could you use a guest reader? And he sort of said, well, I wasn't really planning on it so much, but you know what? Hell yes, I like what you do. So he sent me a short story, which was about 40 pages long when printed, double-spaced lines, called Darkness Schemes Where Devils Dream. By, I think I still have the pages over here. Yes, I do. Here we go. By a gent named Kevin Spitler. So, yes, all of these pages that you can see here, I printed them out and read it, and it was a bit of a slog because there are quite a few pages here, and I think one of the things I might have to invest in at some point is some sort of like a sheet music stand or something, because at the moment I basically, if I'm reading, I like to read standing up. I have my mic here. It's on a mic stand itself, so I stand up, elevate it, sort of have it pointing down a little bit toward me so that I can lift my head, read up a little bit, and I kind of have to hold the sheets up. Sorry, nudge the microphone. Sorry about the noise. I have to hold the sheets up like this, kind of, and if I put them down, don't know if you can actually hear that on the mic, but sometimes you can hear the noise, so I have to sort of be careful between pages about how I'm putting the pages down, and I only put them down on this table back here, and I've got to move back. There's some junk on that table that I didn't really want you to see. Sorry. So I read, and it's going live as part of episode 7. Like Paid to Play, Random Transmissions is a fortnightly podcast, so you will hear me doing the best rendition I can of an American accent, sounding very grim and noir and gritty. Yeah. Just Mitch commented again, that's me in the radio station, great minds think alike. So that's something I might need to invest in. So if you've got a bit of spare cash, folks, please get behind me on Patreon. If you want to make a one-off donation, I will see about getting a PayPal link up soon. I better look at how Real Life Comics does that, actually. Do they just link directly to PayPal? Anyway, so end of March, expect episode 7 of Random Transmissions, Darkness Schemes Where Devils Dream, to go live on iTunes and various other places. So hopefully that also will be a bit of a business card for me as a voice artist. And we'll see where we go from there. I'm kind of envious a little bit at the moment of my guest for episode 57, I think it was, Evie Dantes, who... the bitch, she's like going over to Japan as a cosplayer, and she's been doing bloody voice work too for anime, for fuck's sake. Hate her. She's bloody diversifying her portfolio a bit further, and depending on how she goes there, I might have to see if I can get her back on, if not for season 4 in 2016, maybe season 5 in 2017. because I'd love to chat with a voice artist for the show. Again, it's something that I would like to try, and I've made some tentative contact with a couple. Need to perhaps push a little bit more, and I think that's something that I need to do a little bit more with hunting for hosts in general, is start scheduling some time where I know I'm going to be following up with people, just so I can get a bit more consistent with it. And that's the best way I'm going to be able to get people on board, because getting in touch and then drifting away and not following up is a great way for people to forget me or get the idea that I'm not the best organized and aren't really as enthusiastic as I might otherwise make out about this podcast. Anyway, folks, what time is it? It is 8:28 in the morning here in Cairns, Queensland, which means it's coming up on 9:30 in Sydney, Melbourne, New South Wales, Victoria, and I think sometime around about midnight, if not past midnight, in the UK, and I think something like somewhere between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock, depending on where you live in the United States. So yes, it's about time, I think, to wind things up. Thank you very much for watching, whether you are watching this after the fact on Google, on YouTube, or whether you are here with me. Thank you very much, Mitch, for tuning in. Great to have you here, mate. And it's been great seeing your comments. It's nice to know that it's not just me rambling on into a camera and that somebody is actually watching. So, folks, if you are watching this, please, the next episode, I don't know who it's going to be yet, because I still have to get the chat recorded and in the can. 29, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sunday, March the 13th, or the evening of Saturday, March the 12th, if you're in the States or perhaps the UK. That's when that will be going live. So mark it in your calendars. I will, as soon as I get the episode recorded and up, set up another Hangout on air, and post links to it everywhere so that you can add it to your calendar. I've Mitch, I mentioned at one point that one of the things I would like to do is maybe actually, as sort of a side project, do a kind of fiction podcast like Random Transmissions myself, but or more like, just sort of a straight up character-based podcast where I be some a little bit different every episode. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do it. Again, it's an issue of scheduling, and there are other things that I would like to do, but it's kind of there. It's in the back of my mind. And look, frankly, sweetie, I don't know who this is really. I do worry a little bit that I'm lampooning the homosexual stereotype, which is really unfair. But I also, come on, folks, get over stereotypes, please. I mean, just because someone acts like this doesn't mean they're necessarily in favour of the fellas. They might actually prefer the girls as well, or they might even be completely asexual, sweetie. They might just not roll that way at all. So really, I don't know. It's perhaps the thing with the it's kind of tricky, really. If you're trying to be a comedian, it's easy to take pot shots at other folks. It's just easy to look at other people and say, "Oh, look how stupid they are." Mitch says, sounds like I enjoy a bit of gin. Well, who knows? I might have to front up if I'm doing this, especially if I do a video thing. Just be here with a cocktail glass or something. Sherry or margarita, darling. So we'll see. Yes, it's easy for comedians to point at other people and make mock of them. And really what comedians have to do is take pot shots at themselves, because we're all vulnerable. We're all broken in some way. And I always think of Robin Williams, who my father introduced me to at a young age, gave me an R18 videotape, for crying out loud. I think I was only 12 or something. But yes, Robin Williams live at the Met back in the late 80s, folks. Another fellow who'll be sorely, sorely missed. Poor Robin.
Yes, he came out on stage, and aside from perhaps having jokes based on some of the props and being a comedian at the Opera House, but yes, really, he started off talking about his own foibles and his own struggles, and how he struggled with drugs. I think he said at one point. I gave up drinking because I used to wake up under the car with my keys in my ass. So yes, always start with yourself, even if you move on to the obvious targets like politicians and what have you. But start admitting your own problems and making light of them, and at least that way, if you do have a go at somebody, people will know that yes, you do have a sense of irony. You're just one of these nasty people who points fingers and yells at others. Without understanding that, frankly, folks are all fucked up in some way, really. So, yes, anyway, I'm going to wind it up here. I'll drop the accent and the silly voice for now and say, once again, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you very much for downloading the episode. Please download episode 75 with Ross. It's a great little chat, especially about how you can find happiness just outside the spotlight. You know what I mean? Ross was looking at becoming a pro musician himself. Instead, he found that he quite enjoys working with great creatives as a website designer. And I'm sure he's got a guitar or what have you at home, and probably still pursues musical projects just because he wants to, just because the fancy takes him. But yes, I think I've gone past my scheduled stop time, well, only by a few minutes. But yeah, really, I've got a few things I have to do around the house. I love to stop and hang around a bit more, but if other people come barging in, I'm never going to get out of here. So thank you very much for your time. And until next time, this is Rob Farker, host of the Pay to Play podcast, asking you to be good, be kind, be a little bit dangerous.